Sleater-Kinney Little Rope album review. Let's chat about it. Hey friends, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning here tonight to chat about this latest album from legendary Olympia, Washington band Sleater-Kinney. They've been at it since the mid-90s and for many years were considered to be one of the best to ever do the damn thing. And I too have been a long-time fan of the once trio Sleater-Kinney, even though after all these years I'm still not that crazy about their self-titled debut, as well as Call the Doctor, which I know a lot of people love, but I personally think a lot of their later material was just a whole lot more concise, like the hot rock. And of course, Dig Me Out. These albums showed Sleater-Kinney really coming into their own. They were urgent, they were pissed off. The songs were super catchy too. But for my money, I always thought that the early 2000s was their brightest moment. I've always said that All Hands on the Bad One is my favorite Sleater-Kinney album for a band who for many years were looked at as one of the most consistent forces in indie and punk. I thought this was them at their most concise. I personally don't think it gets any better than it. I will also say that One Beat, which was my first Sleater-Kinney record that I ever listened to, is also really up there as far as songwriting goes and performances for me. Now, I know I'm going to get a comment or two about this, but after all these years, my thoughts haven't changed. I've never been a big fan of The Woods. I mean, it does crank up the energy of their performances. I mean, some of the vocal performances from Corinne on this record are absolutely electrifying, but personally, I prefer their sort of comeback album, No Cities to Love, compared to The Woods. It had been a few years since we had heard from them, and this album, to me, sounded completely rejuvenated. It packs a punch, the energy is thrilling. I thought this was the direction going out, but a few years later, they dropped The Center Won't Hold, which was, I thought, just such a huge misstep for the band. I mean, shortly after the album, Janet Weiss, longtime drummer, actually left the band due to creative differences, and I mean, hearing this record, I really don't blame her. Yeah, it's sort of more experimental for the band. There's almost like some industrial electronic elements, and a lot of them are really, really messy. Like, I commend the efforts, but I don't think those risks really paid off. And 2021's Path of Wellness, I mean, at the time, I gave it like a 6 out of 10, I think. But, like, I've listened to it since, and I think even that was too strong. I don't really know the direction that they were aiming for quite some time, and I was shocked. Now, it's been a while since I've enjoyed a Sleater-Kinney project, but like I said with the Green Day review, I go into every project with an open mind, and leading up to this thing, I thought a lot of the singles were some of their better ones in quite some time, probably since No Cities to Love, and you know what? That's exactly what we get here. I honestly think a lot of this album is Sleater-Kinney getting focused and putting out some of their best material in a really long time, like this album's opener, Hell. Single that dropped from the album, and I loved it from the word go. I wouldn't say this is the wildest or punkiest thing here, but there's a sense of urgency to this track I have not heard in years, and this track is all a build-up to this freak out of a chorus that has these shrieks and wailing guitars. It's pretty great. It's a great start to the record. They sound focused and pissed off. Needlessly Wild, on the other hand, is a little bit more business as usual, but business is very good. I love the looming bass riff and just how focused and sharp this comes off. This is the kind of material I've been waiting for since No Cities to Love. I love how dangerous and sexy this track comes off. And it's all built up once again to this absolute freak out of a chorus. Once again, Sleater-Kinney don't just sound focused, they sound like they've got a lot to say for the first time in a long time too. It's got some really great production also. Say It Like You Mean It, I've loved it since it dropped. It's one of the more pensive tracks here. It really does take its time bringing us up to speed. But it opens up into a pretty timeless sounding Sleater-Kinney track with Heart to Spare. I mean, I don't think it's as explosive or as raw as some of their best material from years ago, but I would argue that I haven't heard Corinne and Carrie this focused in years. Loose, too. It sounds like they're having some fun. Now, I will say this is not your mom's Sleater-Kinney. Things have changed. Time has, definitely changed the band a little bit, and there are still some blemishes here. Like Hunt You Down, for example. This track I hate to say it, but it's really, really ugly. It's a very clumsy track with really sloppy production. This sounds like a B-side from their last two records. It's slow, it's awkward, it doesn't have that heart or that passion, and everything else kind of falls apart because of that. And Small Friends is a little bit too abrasive for me, and this is coming from a band that's definitely no stranger to a nice, twisted, edgy, angular riff. They usually do it pretty well too, but this track sounds ugly, rushed, and more. And lyrically, I think this track is a little phoned in as well. I just think they're better than this. There's a whole lot more decent material on here that is certainly not this track. However, I will give it a slight pass because in the last 30 seconds, we get some guitar tones that are some of the coolest on this entire record. They sound great. And Dress Yourself, to me, this track is just kind of wallpaper music. It is certainly not bad. There are worse tracks on this album, but honestly, to me, this is just very ho-hum, nothing crazy indie rock, and for a band that's been doing it for this long, I don't expect this. And once again, I actually do like some of the guitar tones on this track. They're pretty heavy, but the songwriting and the hook just does not excite me or invigorate me. We can do better, and they do better, because a lot of the rest of this record is real quality stuff. Like Don't Feel Right, for example. Love this track. Love the energy. Love the upbeat guitars that really get me going. And I love the synths on this track that are just twinkling out of reach. Just enough to really kind of mix things up a little bit. It's one of the longer cuts here, but it's also one of the most urgent and punchy cuts here. It's so refreshing to hear this really come easy to them. It's awesome, it's pissed off, it's urgent, like I said, it's a great track. And we have 6 mistakes, and honestly, I didn't think that we would hear anything this raw here, because this track's got some teeth to it. I love the gritty guitars and the looming bass riff, and vocally, this track is, woo, it is powerful. It's also even dark and foreboding at times. I'm actually really impressed with it. Crusaders also brings back the semi-electronic sounds of their last 2 records, something that I was very critical of, but actually does a really good job with it. It sounds much more full, a lot more complete as well. Albeit very busy, it's also one of the catchiest tunes here. I mean, a lot of this album is pretty cut and dry, very straightforward, but I think the story here is just how easy it's coming to Sleater-Kinney again, and that makes me a happy boy. Speaking of happy boys, Untidy Creature as a finale. I think it's the best track here and one of the better rock singles I've heard in a while, and one of the best tracks I've heard from Sleater-Kinney in years. One that is speedy or punky or wild-eyed or abrasive, this is the heaviest track here. These guitars are, woo, they are meaty. It's an awesome, addictive track that I have been listening to non-stop since it dropped as a single, and Corinne's vocal performance here, my God, it's good. I love how visual this track is, and there is also a serious sense of finality to this track, which I really think is pretty decent. Overall, this is very easily one of the best things that Sleater-Kinney has done in the last decade. I mean, it's been so long since I've really truly loved an album from them, and this is a huge step in the right direction. While it's not as thrilling or as concise as some of their early records, the tracks are coming easy to them again, and the passion and the heart does seem to be back, and that's really all I can ask for at the end of the day. This album's pretty good. I'm feeling a strong 7 on this one, but let me know what you all think down below. If you liked the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, friends.